You guys know the drill. Now that the Bakemono trial deck is out here in English, we are going to talk about it. So what effect will the Bakemono trial deck have on the American metagame? I don't know. Let's boot it up and find out. If you're just net decking the deck list, then here you go. Enjoy. I will warn you, however, that these are English translations of the Japanese names and not the official names of the English cards themselves. So the cards out here in America will probably differ slightly in name. For the rest of us, let's take a look at the deck overall. With the exclusion of events, the extra cards had to go somewhere, so our zero is a little bit top heavy. This isn't necessarily a bad thing though. Trial decks are all about getting new players into the game, and having a lot of zeros is really helpful to new players. It teaches them balance and also the multiple uses for zeros, like late game sweeping. As with almost all trial decks, we have two different vanillas at level 0. We have 4 blue and 2 red. You guys know the dealio. At level 0, you use them to get over cards that normally have effects, you use them to swing for soul, and they're also incredibly expendable, so you can get rid of them to help fix the colors in your clock. Not exactly necessary, but sometimes helpful. Our deck's level 0 assist is Ultimate Perfect Student. Unfortunately, this one is just a basic plus 500 power assist. Admittedly, this is a little disappointing. Pansy Miku in the recently released Hatsune Miku trial deck, and Yui in the Sword Art Online trial deck that came before it both had extra abilities that boosted power. It's kind of an older trial deck, so it's understandable, but at the same time, the American Weiss metagame is getting big enough that not having those things is going to matter. It's not a deal breaker by any means, it's still the level 0 assist that you need it to be. Nautico Curse Removal is your basic level 0 blue. She's a 2500 but is a 3500 during your opponent's turn. These are actually astonishingly strong level 0s. Making your opponent deal with a 3500 is what we want to do. That'll step over vanillas and it'll tie with yellow assassins. During our turn, it doesn't matter that it's only a 2500 because we can either attack an open spot for direct damage or we can side attack and not lose any soul because we're fighting at level 0. This card is really, really good, and the fact that they automatically put 4 in is just astounding. Karen and Tsukihi Aragi, aka the Lolly Double Scoop, can get back a strange character from your discard pile by paying 2 stock when they're sent to the discard pile. It seems like a pretty basic effect, but there are some pretty dirty things you can do with this. After you pay for its effect, you can pay for the stock to encore it, putting it back on stage, and then you can let it die again and use its effect again. Potentially, you could do this to keep optimum hand size so that you can pay for super encores or just have a lot of characters during the 3rd level. Or you could even just do this to weed out your discard pile, making sure that you have the maximum climax to non-climax ratio. These aren't necessarily things you want to do, but knowing that you can do them is what helps you grow as a duelist. Tsubasa in Pajamas is Blue's version of Assassination. With the exception of the Lolly Double Scoop before this, all of your characters are going to be strange at level 0. This can potentially get as high as 4500, and that's before assist boosts. Even if you only get its effect twice, that's still a 3500 on level 0. It's a good one-time use card. Use it to get over something that's bugging you or you can't get over normally. Our level 1 play is pretty beefy actually. It's pretty good. This should be your control level, so let's take a look at it. The deck comes with 2 5500 level 1 vanillas. You know my thoughts on these. You either love them or you hate them. I don't like them, I don't use them, I don't plan on using them. If you like them, then good for you. They're definitely not a bad card. In most people's opinions. The deck does, however, come with 4 copies of the 7000 vanilla. Now, these cards I love. The fact that the deck only comes with 2 of the other ones and 4 of this one makes it pretty okay in my book. So I know a lot of my more elitist fans are going to disagree with me on this, but I highly believe this is the best card in the entire deck. You can pay 1 stock to give it plus 1000 power, and when your battle opponent gets reversed, you can put it on top of the deck. So why is this card so fantastic? Let's take a look. First things first, it is repeatable. If you want to pay 4 stock, then you can pay 4 stock, and this is a 9000 for the turn. If you want to pay 12 stock, then this is a 17,000 for the turn. Keep that in mind for a second. You can also use it to step over characters with Encore. There are a lot of decks that rely heavily on characters that have Encore, like Sword Art Online, for example, relying on Imprisoned Queen Asuna. You just play this card, bump it a few times, attack, and then that character goes to the top of the deck, becoming guaranteed damage for the next card to attack. All of a sudden, your opponent's main beater is no longer a problem. Again, there's an obvious problem in doing this. That's a pretty stock-nomming way to lose the game, and it's not something you need to do all of the time. But the fact that you can is awesome. Mayoi gives us a plus 2,000 backup card at level 1. Personally, with how stock-reliant the deck is, I think I would have preferred if this were the free 1,500 that you didn't have to pay for, but it's whatever. Not really going to complain about one stock for 2,000 power, you know? You can use it to keep your more important cards alive. What more do you want? Don't be fooled! At first glance, Koyomi looks amazing, but we're going to talk about this guy. He's a level 1 5,000 that's free. Okay. You can take 2 characters from your waiting room, put them back into your deck, and shuffle it to give him plus 2,000 power. So in essence, this can be a free 7,000. That sounds fantastic, but hear me out. Okay, so your deck, right? It's got 50 cards in it. That means every card takes up 2%. By returning 2 non-climax cards to your deck, you're increasing the potential damage your opponent is doing by 4%. There is a bit of a risk-reward thing. You could put in like level 3s or something that you're going to need later in the game so that you can potentially draw into them again, and you can also use it to keep yourself from decking out. Just remember that you're also giving your opponent more cards to deal damage to you. It's not a bad effect, especially in such a stock-reliant deck, but it's one you have to be careful about. Our final level 1 is 1 copy of Hitagi Extremely Suspicious. Think what you will, I don't like this card. You do get a 6,500, but that is 500 less than the vanilla you could potentially have. And when it attacks, 2 of your strange characters get a 500 boost. Here's my problem with 500 boost. Plus 500 power can only do 2 things, either create ties or step over ties. Neither of which at level 1 you want to focus on doing. Plus 500 power is pretty worthless, unless it's a constant effect like assists. So whatever, if you like this card, great, but I personally don't think it's a very good card. Level 2's not quite as heavy as our level 1, but it is pretty nice. It's only got 3 characters, but they're really the only 3 characters you need. Our first is Hitagi in casual clothing. What is with these cards in casual clothing? Anyway, whenever one of your other strange characters attacks, she gets plus 1,000 power for the turn. It's okay. The reason I say that this is okay and not just flat out awful is it can potentially get up to a 10,000 if you have a full row. There are a couple of problems with this late game. First of all, you can't always guarantee you're going to have a full row. It does only cost 1 stock though, but unfortunately, it only costs 1 stock, so it only does 1 soul damage. If you can't pull its effect off, it's only an 8,000 that swings for 1 soul. So this card can be either kind of okay, I guess, or completely worthless. Suruga BL Lover, however, is the real deal. This guy is where it's at, and the fact that your deck comes with 4 of them is awesome. All of my good students are going to remember that I talked about something called the shear line a while ago. And all my A+ students are going to notice that it is 1,000 points below that shear line. But I also said if the effects make up for it, then it's okay to have a character below the shear line, and this card more than makes up for it. It's a very simple card. It's a level 2, 2 cost, with Super Encore that swings for 2 soul. If your opponent can't keep up a full field, then this card is a nightmare. Attack an open slot. Your opponent moves something over, attacks it, you discard a card from your hand. You attack an open slot on your next turn. Your opponent has to deal with that, and then on your opponent's next turn, they destroy it, you discard a card. My point is, Super Encore rocks. Super Encore in a level 2 that swings for 2 soul damage. Just too good. Just too good. Mayoi is the classic, plus 1,000 power if you have 2 or more other characters. These are whatever. With a lineup like this, I'd say that this is probably the weakest of the level 2s and the easiest to get rid of. It does have a little bit more survivability than Hitagi in casual clothing, but not by much. Overall, I really wish this would have been like a level assist or another kind of really heavy assist, but you take what you can get. And finally, let's take a look at our level 3. And of course, to top off a surprisingly fantastic deck, we have An awful, 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 awful level 3. Why is it that good decks have to have awful level 3s? Why is that a thing? Well, I suppose we should go over it. First off, it doesn't heal. There's no reason for this. Getting a character back from the discard pile is no excuse for not healing. Second, its pump effect really isn't that good. You rest 2 strange characters and choose a 12,500. Woo! People to this day still give me crap for thinking the level 3 Madoka and the Madoka trial deck is really good. But the thing is, Madoka hits the field and is a 15,000 that you can boost to be even stronger than that to step over literally anything your opponent has. Killing characters means they have to replace them with cards in their hand or stock. You're getting rid of resources. That's why really powerful level 3s are good. If you're gonna be a level 3 that relies solely on power and doesn't heal, then you have to bring something to the table a little better than 12,500. That is all. These are the climaxes for the deck. All in all, it's really quite a good spread. There are no climax combos in the deck at all, so they could use whichever ones they wanted. They gave 3 of the basics, and you even get a door trigger. So let's talk about the deck overall. Overall, I actually think this deck is quite fantastic. I don't think it's the best. I still think that Fate Zero and Sword Art Online have a slight edge over this deck. But I do hold it over the Madoka deck and the recently released Hatsune Miku deck. The deck is especially beginner-friendly, just like the Sword Art Online trial deck was when it came out, though I don't think it's quite as powerful. There are some pretty disgusting things you can do with the deck, like that level 0 loop I talked about, and even the useless level 3 has its own loop. You can tap 2 characters and then replace them with new characters to tap them, though at level 3 you're kind of an idiot to do that. The main problem is potential for greatness isn't really a substitute for actual greatness. Don't think that I'm bashing the deck though. If you're a Bakemono fan or even a Weiss fan, I do think this deck is really worth picking up. It's not the powerhouse that Sword Art and Fate Zero were, so don't expect that, but do expect a good solid deck, especially a good one for beginners if you have anybody that's learning the game. And as always, if you are planning on picking this up, then here are my tips on what I would do to make the deck slightly more competitive. At level 0, I'd take out the 6 vanillas. Put in 2 Tsubasa in pajamas and 1 more Karen and Tsukihi. At level 1, take out the 2 5500 vanillas. Also take out Hitagi Extremely Suspicious. The deck doesn't run any late game assists, so run a full set of 4 Mayoi Well Acquainted. Bring Hitagi Battle Situation up to 4 for sure, that's going to be your main beater. Lastly, at level 1, add 1 more Koyomi Unmoving Tacturnity. You can play around with level 2 a bit, maybe take out the Mayoi Elementary School students if you really want to, but personally I think the level 2 lineup is pretty solid, so I would just keep it where it is. Lastly, use the remaining card space we have on 1 more Hitagi Tender-Cared Daughter. I may not like her, but she is a level 3 that swings for 2 soul and can stand at 12,500, so running at least 3 of her is going to be optimal. Well, that's it for today, kids. If you enjoyed this analysis of mine, then it would really help me out if you left me a like. Those thumbs up add up fast. Have an idea for what you want me to do next, then why not leave it in the comments section below. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. Till next time, Weiss fans.